My name is Justin Ingram, and I'm assistant professor of biology. I teach a lot of the anatomy and physiology classes here at the college. The most challenging thing in science is just starting out and you're bombarded with terminology. It's just term, right? Not something that you're potentially familiar with unless you speak Latin. But terms are puzzle pieces. The terms are players to a game. The terms are characters to a story. And to understand the body, to understand the world, you gotta understand those players. Once you get the terms under your belt, you can start to see how all these little individual terms or puzzle pieces or players to a game start to come together. Growing up as a kid, I always liked science, but how do you make that into a career? What do you really do? Biology is very broad, chemistry is very broad, physics is very broad. And one of the biggest highlights and the biggest and best decisions I ever made is I decided to go not just biology and chemistry, but I also added another degree called nanotechnology. It was brand new, and I wanted to add that to my resume. So then I went from biology to chemistry to then nanotechnology, then to neuroscience, and then I got an offer to go to grad school so I could become a neuroscientist. Going there to grad school then led to a professorship today where I can do research and I can do the teaching, but it all came from decisions and really taking a chance of how do I set myself apart? What can I do that's a little bit different than everybody else? Passion is something that I like to think about as my brain being a circuit, right? So there's a circuit that processes light, there's a circuit that processes sound, there's one that tells my muscles to move, and they're all individual circuits. And I want to have that circuit just fly. And if I don't have that passion, or I'm worried about something, or I have anxiety or disease or disorder that's stopping that circuit from working, that circuit doesn't work as efficiently. So if I'm doing something that I'm not passionate about, and I don't have that drive for it, and I'm concerned for whatever reason, that circuit starts to get a little bit muddier and it doesn't work like it potentially could. So now I'm not fully performing at my full potential. And you can see a student that might not be academically as strong, but they have that passion, they have that drive. They found their niche, they know what it is. And that type of student is the student that's going to succeed. If you're not motivated, if you don't have that drive and that grit and that passion, those students just fizzle out. If you want to become a health science professional, you can't just jump into the game and play professional sports. You got to practice and play the game before you get there first, right? So biology is the study of life, that's everything. Chemistry is the study of chemistry, which is what your body's made up of, and all the chemistries and all the drugs that affect that body. Physics is the study of motion, right? Math is essential to tell how drug concentrations are going to work and how mechanics work inside of a system. You have to see it through the lens of everything, and students don't necessarily see that. They see, I want to help this person. And that's my passion, that's my drive. But in order to do that, there's a bigger backstory, and that's where all the science comes in.
What I have done in the course of my adult life has been intimately connected with interests I had as a child.
Dr. Robert McCauley is the founding director of Emory University's Center for Mind, Brain, and Culture in Atlanta. He is a professor of philosophy, psychology, religion, and anthropology, and a pioneer in the cognitive science of religion. He is the author of 4 books, including Why Religion is Natural and Science is Not. Dr. McCauley visited Penn College in 2017 as part of the Daniel J. Doyle Technology and Society Colloquia Series.
New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2016, was the 100th birthday of Florence Karnofsky. Florence Karnofsky was my 6th grade teacher. There was no teacher who had any remotely as close an influence on me as she did. And quite literally it is the case that there are things that I learned in 6th grade that I can still explicitly remember that have had an impact on my professional life. In fact, there's social science research on this. The findings are that if a student has a single, even one great teacher, they have a bounce in their income relative to people who don't have such an experience. Florence Karnofsky introduced me to the power of ideas and their abilities to change not only your life, but the world. Science is surprisingly more fragile, I think, than most citizens realize. Science also crucially depends upon a sound system of education throughout the society. Not everyone's going to be a scientist, not everyone's going to be a technologist. We don't know who they are from the outset, and moreover, it seems to me in a democratic system it's vitally important that all of our citizens gain a solid education and become literate citizens. For most folks, science is something really that's out there quite at a distance from them, but they do understand, first and foremost, its spin-offs in two domains of life. One is in technologies, many of which, of course, in our own lifetimes have been these exciting new digital technologies, but also in healthcare. Those are the sort of two obvious places where, for most human beings, there's a certain point in their life when these consequences of science turn out to be really important. Being able to tailor treatments to individuals on the basis of knowing perhaps the particular etiology of their own cancer and knowing their genetic makeup. This is a tremendous opportunity for all of science. We now have these machines that enable us to do science, as it were, at a whole different grain of specificity by assembling vast amounts of information. Now, of course, the problem is, once you start doing that, you have to be able to store it, you've got to be able to organize it, you've got to be able to access it, you've got to be able to interpret it, and you've got to be able to, in short, finally condense it. We still need people to have great theories, how all this stuff should be assembled and which parts amongst the data that we have are the parts that are important.